our club members, this is an important episode and I think it's one that's long overdue. We are delving into the grape varietal known as Meunier. Now we reference it, we talk about it, but more and more we're seeing winemakers of Champagne, particularly the smaller grower producers, focusing on the Meunier grape. For a long time, this grape varietal, one of three, predominantly grown in Champagne, was really referred to as the underdog. It was the workhorse. We had the two noble grapes, the king and the queen, Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, and Meunier was really a grape varietal that was said to add a bit of fruitiness and fullness to a young Champagne. But I think there's more to it, and a couple of winemakers agree with me, and this month we're focusing on the masters of Meunier with two outstanding Champagnes that are 100% Meunier. But let's take a step back. What is this grape varietal? How is it different to Pinot Noir? Where does it get its name from? And what are its characteristics? Firstly, there's been some debate around its official name. Is it Pinot Meunier, or more commonly now, just referred to as the heritage of the grape varietal, the clone. So what they're saying is it's a mutation of the Pinot Noir grape. It's not necessarily a clone coming right down from the DNA, but if you look at history, it does actually share the DNA of the grape with both Pinot Noir and Pinot Gris. It is a black-skinned grape with a white juice, but it has its value and it has its place in Champagne. Now, a third of all grapes grown in the Champagne region are the Meunier grapes, so of course it's important. But more traditionally, the two noble grapes, Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, had more prestige. They had higher price per kilo, and they were really known as the noble grapes, and very, very rarely did you see Meunier wine, that's a tongue twister, as you do in this month. So what are its characteristics? Makes a slightly lighter red wine, so a bit more Gamay style, lighter, fresher, fruitier, and more aromatic. But the benefit of growing Meunier, particularly in the Vallée de la Marne, which is an area of Champagne which is along the Marne River, quite hilly, the benefit of the Meunier grape is that it actually flowers later. The buds develop later. It's a shorter ripening cycle. Now this is great because we get through this dangerous period where we're transitioning weather, and we don't get as much frost damage on this particular grape. So it's grown along the Vallée de la Marne, which is on the banks of the Marne River, which is highly prone to frost. Chardonnay, Pinot Noir don't do so well here. Meunier is hardier in these environments, so therefore we've got a grape varietal that will stand the test of time in this zone. So we've got the Meunier grape, Meunier meaning miller, miller referring to the flowery white coating that's distinguishing the grape varietal because of its leaves, a little white flowery, almost furry coating on the leaves of the grape. Black grape, white juice, giving this fresh, highly fruity, aromatic quality. And I tell you what, there's some guys and some dolls in Champagne at the moment making amazing 100% Meunier wines, and you'll see two of them this month. This is a real treat, this wine, I have to say, because it is the first time that it's been in Australia. The producer, Eric Taillet. He is mad about Meunier, and he's a master of Meunier, so much so that he started the Meunier Institute. And this is an institute that helps other winemakers master the art of growing and fermenting and making 100% Meunier wine. He knows it inside out and back to front. He's very, very passionate about this particular grape varietal. And the wine that's coming out is called Exclusiv't. And how appropriate given that it's exclusive to club members. A very, very, very well-chosen bottle by our team this month for you. Now, a little bit about the vineyard. Eric Taillet is located in the Vallée de la Marne in a little town called Bacillus-sur-Châtillon. It's a mouthful, as many of these small towns are in Champagne. Fourth generation now, working the vines in this area. Tiny production, we're talking 6 hectares, 60,000 bottles a year. I mean, carve that up around the world. We're talking tiny, tiny, tiny quantities. This is one of their top cuvées. It's 100% Pinot Meunier. 20 to 30% of it is reserve wines. And the reserve wines are a perpetual blend. So every year, a little bit of the fruit going in and a little bit coming out to add in to the depth and complexity of the wine. And you can really see it. You've got a really deep golden color in this wine and a beautiful fine bead, even though the wine itself has only been in the bottle for a couple of years. He's very purposeful around the way he makes the wine, but he's also very rustic and very hands-off. Think about this. He uses natural yeasts, so yeasts that are found within the vineyard, a very natural approach, no fining, no filtration, a mix of stainless steel and vats. One thing that Eric says, which I think is really important, is that you've got to be really careful with the Meunier grape not to give it access to oxygen. So particularly in that pressing process and before you get to bottling, because the Meunier grape can oxidize very quickly. So you need to be very, very careful in the production process, getting from the first press to the bottling stage. So he tries not to touch the wine at this stage and he lets the wine sit and ferment. Native yeasts, couple of years in the barrel, tank and barrel, older barrels. This is his grandfather's tradition. The wine has a richness, a creaminess to it, apricot, stone fruit, passion fruit. It is a really silky wine on the palate, but it does have a really lively attack. And don't forget, we've got a 1 gram addition of dosage to the wine. So really, hands off. The Meunier grape, and this is important to note too, does have a slightly higher acidity than Pinot Noir as a grape varietal. So look out for those characteristics when you're tasting this wine, but I think you're going to love it. I have really enjoyed it. It's exclusive for you. For all of our connoisseurs, we have a champagne very close to my heart. The house, or the range actually, is called Apollonis, the range of champagnes. It is actually the Loriot family, Michel Loriot at the helm of the house at the moment. And what I love about Michel Loriot is his passion for classical music. And actually, if you look at the inside of the cap, it says, in French and also in English, taste the vibrations and enjoy. And what he's referring to is the fact that he plays classical music within the vines when they're in the growing phase and also within the vineyard. And this, when I first found out about this, was fascinating to me. There's been studies done on this. He feels that the vibration of the music does something wonderful to the grape varietals, but also there's some research, there's some studies that it also deters the bugs, the insects, which is great, so that you can really approach yourself as organic without that problem of bugs in the vines, eating your leaves, eating your grapes. Fascinating philosophy, but the wines are wonderful. He's another Meunier master. They are also located in the Vallée de la Marne. They're in a little town called Festigny. And Festigny is really beautiful because most of Champagne is actually quite flat land. And Champagne is a word, if you go back to Roman times, campagna means flat land. But in the Vallée de la Marne, it's quite steep hills snaking along the Marne River. And most of the vineyards in Festigny are on very, very steep slopes with a bank of trees at the top going down to the Marne River. So you've got a very steep aspect. You've got a lot of sunshine. And quite chalky actually. So normally in the Vallée de la Marne, you have a lot of clay and marl, a bit of limestone, but very, very chalky soils in Festigny, which for me gives this beautiful freshness and minerality on the wines that we don't see on the Taillet wines, which are more powerful, more deep. Interesting. They've got about 7 hectares, so still tiny, only a hectare more than their friends down the road with Eric Taillet. I really like the approach of the winemaker. I like the approach of the family. Again, very fastidious. We do have a high environmental value vineyard. So they really are focused on the environmental perspective within the winemaking process. 100% Meunier, same as the previous wine. 2 years in the cellar, similar time frame. But now we have a slightly higher dosage. And dosage is really personal. It's up to the winemaker. How much do we want to balance out the acidity of the wine? And of course, as we know, with Meunier, we get a slightly higher acid level. So we've got 8 grams versus 1 gram. It's not out of place. Like, it's really not out of place in this wine, but it does change the attack, the silkiness, the approach on the palate. We do have older vines giving us depth of flavour. So we've got an average age of the vines of 70 years. So these are vines that were actually planted by Michel's grandfather. So we've got really good time, very low yield, high intensity, depth of flavour, a real power. What I love about it, again, we see this apricot character and the warmth of the fruit, but there's a spiciness to it. There's a herbal edge, there's a spiciness. Sometimes I get this licorice note on this wine, which I really enjoy. And I have to tell you, the customers that buy this wine, and they do regularly, particularly the magnums, they're very popular with us. If you want to try the next format, I love the aromatic, the lifted, beautiful aromatic profile of the wine, but it's supple, it's silky, it's really approachable on the palate. So if you are introducing champagne to someone who hasn't had a Blanc de Meunier or a Blanc de Noir before, this is a great wine to start with because it's very approachable, beautifully made, but tell the story about the classical music playing in the vines. We all love a great story. This house is gorgeous. I love seeing them in the club, and you will enjoy the whole range. Go to Emperor, enjoy the whole range. The rosé is gorgeous. And if you think that Meunier can't age, which a lot of people say that Meunier can't age, they've got a great vintage champagne within the range that's been aged for a decade. So you can really see Meunier at its best. I hope that you have a new appreciation for the Meunier grape, which we have presented this month in two sensational producers, Eric Taillet, first time in Australia, exclusive for you, and of course the wine, Exclusiv't, a Blanc de Meunier, and also in one of my personal favorites, Apollonis from the Loriot family, also a Meunier, 100% Meunier wine, authentic Meunier. There's been this perception, there's been this conversation that Meunier is an underdog, is a workhorse. It's more than that. You won't see 100% Meunier wines in the big houses, in the Grand Marques, in the Cliquots, in the Bollingers, etc. You really are seeing it done so very well, and these grower producers, 60,000 bottles a year, 6 to 7 hectares of land. In the Vallée de la Marne, where we have these steep slopes right on the banks of the Marne River, which suffer from frost. Pinot Noir, Chardonnay don't do as well, but Meunier is just magic on these hills and just magic in this region. We've seen two producers do it oh so well. This beautiful elegance of aromatic property and a lovely suppleness on the palate. Two great wines. I hope you've learned a little bit more about the Meunier clone, the Meunier grape. It's higher in acidity, it's later in its ripening, but it's got so much potential. And if we want to look at potential, look at Apollonis in the vintage and see how it ages. Look at some of the other producers in Meunier, including Mr. Musset, and see how it ages. You will see it's not just a workhorse, it is a magic varietal and one that needs to be explored. I hope that you enjoyed a little bit of the, I hope that you enjoyed both of the champagnes this month, and Exclusiv't. I'm going to start that again. 17 champagnes in. Let's go for it because I'm running out of mental capacity.
3, 2, 1, action.
To all our club members.
Wait. Where have you put the mic?
It's under here.
No, it needs to be in the
This grape varietal harvest, or fuck me, I'm so close. Coming back.
Yep, cool. All good.
I'll make it tighter.
3, 2, 1, action.
Okay.
The tongue twisters there?
There's a lot of tongue twisters. I don't know whether it's because I'm tired or not. Okay.
Alrighty, counting you in. 3, 2, and action.